I'm one of the trainers here at Beacon. I've been a trainer for about 5 years and I work with a lot of different people, but I focus more on strength training. So that's a big topic about what we're going to talk about today. Big part of movement is gaining strength. And then we'll also talk about cardio after we cover strength training, okay? Let's see. First thing is one of my goals here for today is for each of you to kind of have an idea of how you can come up with a plan in regards to your week. So what would your week look like in regards to movement? So the first step to coming up with a plan is what is the goal? For each of you, it's going to be a little bit different. So you've got to come up with your own goal. I've worked with people who have had knee surgery and then they've been to physical therapy, then they work with me and their goal is just to become more mobile, to become a little bit stronger so that they're able to function in daily life, improve balance. That's just one example. Yours could be something very different, but keep your goal in mind as we talk about everything today. Because a lot of what I'm going to outline is how to come into the gym and work towards your goal through using strength and movement. So, the first thing we want to do is make it very simple. I'm going to be talking about a lot of different things today. That's why everybody has their own handout so you can follow along and you can refer back to it later. There are a few movements that you'll want to try to do at least every week. And I've kind of given you six or eight different movements depending on how you break it down. The first one that we'll talk about is a press. So a press is basically you're pressing overhead or you're pressing in front of you. Now that's really important because if you don't ever press weight over your head, eventually as you get older you'll lose the ability to do that, to put something up into a cabinet or reach for something and pull it down. So using the gym, we can kind of train for that and make sure you don't lose strength. So overhead press, so overhead and then in front of you, those are the first two movements. And then a pulling exercise, so somewhere where you pull down from above. And we have machines out there that kind of follow exactly the names that you see here. And then a row, so one up above, one in front of you. And then we'll move on a single leg movement. A lot of us, if you've had an injury, or I know a lot of you haven't played sports for a really long time, but athletes, I also deal with this, you're imbalanced. So if one leg is stronger than the other leg, that could lead to an injury down the road. So it could lead to hip issues, it could lead to knee problems, it could lead to balance problems. So single leg movements and isolating one leg at a time is very important, and the gym is a great place for us to do that. We can use machines to isolate certain muscles and do certain movements. Next one is a squat. We all squat every day. We squat to sit down into a chair. We squat to use the restroom. So that's a very functional movement that can be trained through strength in the gym. And you can learn how to properly squat. I see it countless times. I'll see people go to sit down and they let their knees go like that. All the time I'll see that with people. They'll let their knees cave in. That could lead to knee issues. So that's something to watch for. You never want to let your knees cave in. It's called knee valgus. And people do it without even thinking. They do it when they sit down all the time. That's another thing you can train in the gym. A hinge, so that'd be like a hip hinge. A lot of people don't know how to properly hip hinge. They'll bend from the back, which could lead to back problems if you're trying to pick something up. So when we hinge, we load the glutes and the hamstrings to say pick something up off the ground versus bending over and loading your spine directly, okay? So we can practice that in the gym and we can strengthen those muscles through training like a hinge motion, okay? It's another movement that's really important. And then of course core. Everybody loves to talk about core. Core is very important for balance. So if you're really wanting to improve your balance, that is something you're going to want to focus on. So that's a way to break it down. What should I do this week? Well, I need to make sure I do one overhead movement. I do one pressing movement, one pull down, row, single leg. So you could just check it off. What did I do this week in the gym? This is what I want to cover. Starting point. So everyone's where do I start? They don't know where to start. So it all depends on what you're currently doing. So if you're not really currently doing anything, a great place to start is just to go up on the track and walk. get acclimated to the gym, create a routine, just enter the building. And then of course we offer fitness orientations for people who join the gym where you can meet with a trainer, they can show you the equipment, and then you can kind of ease yourself in that way. Now, if you've already been doing activity, you might want to come up with a sort of like program, which is what we talk about next, progressive overload. So this is a term that's used with strength training. It could be used with cardio. We'll reference it again. Progressive overload is basically just gradually pushing yourself over time to make sure that you build strength and you don't hit a plateau. So this is a way you can increase weight. You can increase the frequency at which you train. So like instead of training 2 days a week, you could increase it to 3 days a week. That's another way to progress week to week. Number of repetitions. So the reps, sets, and weight. Yes.
When you say overload, that's not in a negative term.
No.
That is a good thing.
It's a positive thing.
All right.
Yeah. So you're just progressively pushing yourself. That's basically what it's saying. Yeah. And that looks different for everybody. Some people will push more than others. I say do whatever you feel comfortable doing and whatever you feel safe doing. So some people will progress a little bit slower than other people, but that's what they're comfortable with, and that's fine, as long as you're pushing yourself and trying to build strength over time. Warm-up sets versus working sets. So a lot of you might not have to deal with this, but I'll go ahead and explain it to you. Once you reach a certain point of strength, you probably need to warm up before you do your working weight. So let's use a chest press for an example, or like a incline push-up. That would be a good example. So when you first enter the gym, you're cold, you haven't really been doing much, so you want to take time to warm up. So like, let's say if I'm warm, I can do an incline push-up pretty low. Like if I had a bar this high, I could do an incline push-up. But I don't necessarily want to start there. I may want to start at a little bit higher incline, do a few reps, lower it down, do a few more reps, and then lower it down. Because as you get warm, you'll feel stronger. So it's good to kind of start with a little bit lighter weight, and then you can add weight. And then once you get to a weight that you feel is challenging, that would be your working weight. So that is the sets that are the most effective, the sets where you're going to actually build strength. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't do the lighter sets, because you want to warm up and make sure you're ready for the challenging sets, okay? All right. Another way you can progress things is tempo and pauses. These are a great way to progress things because you can't always add weight and you can't always do more reps. You're going to reach a certain point where you can't do that. So slowing down the tempo or adding a pause in the movement, like a row, for example. A lot of us know how to do a row, whether it's like a bent over row or like just pulling a band or something. Instead of just pulling the band like this, I could pause with my shoulder pulled all the way back. It's almost like an isometric hold, and then slowly release. That's going to make the movement a little bit more difficult without adding any extra load or any more reps. So that is another way for you to kind of progress your training over time, is just add more control to the movement, okay? Exercise selection. So this depends on your goal. So like for the person, for example, that had knee surgery, who just finished PT, is now working with me, I'm going to have them doing a lot of almost like small movements, like a touchdown squat, or like maybe a light leg extension, but it's all focused around what their goal is, which is rehabbing the knee and getting stronger. And that's going to look different for each person. So I'm actually going to ask a question. If anyone wants to be my guinea pig, that way I can kind of show everybody what I mean whenever I'm talking about this, I can kind of create a plan for you today. You want to be my guinea pig? Okay, so
Good gosh, yeah.
alrighty. Yeah. So mainly I'm just going to be writing kind of like a plan for you. I might have you do a few things so that I can come up, but you could sit right here so everybody can see.
Not exactly where it was.
That's okay. We'll make it work. So what's your goal when it comes to the gym? What are you working towards?
Just continue Strength and fitness.
Strength and fitness, okay. Do you have any kind of limitations? Have you had any surgeries, any injuries before? No, not really?
Not really.
Okay.
He's perfect.
Oh, okay, okay.
Plantar fasciitis years ago.
Years ago, okay, so it's not a problem anymore. Alrighty, so can I actually ask for a different guinea pig? I want a hard one. I want somebody that's going to give me a challenge. Because, like, I could come up with a plan for you, but... Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah? Okay.
I got problems.
All right, you got problems? Okay. As long as you don't mind telling everybody. It's a little bit... You got to make it hard so everybody learns. You would be an easy one for me to create a plan with. All right, so tell me, what are your goals?
Strength and fitness, just like he
Okay,
I
okay,
have 2 knees replaced.
okay. 2 knees replaced.
Not in 24, not 23, but 22.
Okay,
And I have a torn rotator cuff,
okay,
and I have a torn bicep tendon.
okay. And they're still injured. You haven't had surgery on them. Okay, so never had surgery.
Trying
Okay.
to be a cobra.
Okay, all right. Sounds good. Okay, so we've got to work around a few things for, what was your name?
Margaret.
Margaret. All right, so she's got a shoulder injury. That automatically tells me that we should not really be doing anything pressing overhead. And we want to be careful with what movements we do with the shoulder. It also tells me if we do anything upper body, it's likely it needs to be single arm. So her right arm, which is the injured arm, is probably a little bit weaker than left arm all around because she favors that side because it's injured. So anything we do, it's probably going to be single arm. So that might make it a little bit more difficult for Margaret because some of our machines are bilateral, which means use both arms at the same time. So I would lean more towards using cables or bands for your training, and then also dumbbells, potentially, okay? For the legs, can I see you like do a box squat or a squat? Do we have a chair that doesn't move? This one.
Yes, right there.
Right there? Okay. So do you do box squats at all?
I don't know what a box
Okay.
squat is.
Let me show everybody. So this is a great way to build strength in your leg. So it's just where you squat down to a box. So
Yes, I do.
you would just sit back, down and onto the chair, and then come right back up. Okay? You can do that? All right.
Should I tell you now that I work with a trainer here?
I actually have seen you work with a trainer. By the way, I love your shoes. Did Tyler tell you to get those shoes? Oh, no. Not these ones.
Oh, my other ones.
The other ones that you train in.
Yes.
Yeah. I saw those shoes. I was like, I bet you Tyler told you to get those shoes.
I like yours.
I do too.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Okay. All right. Let's see a box squat if you can. So just stand up and
My
then...
knees want to go in.
Yeah, I saw that. So that's exactly what I was looking for. That happens to a lot of people. Probably happens to you and you don't even realize it. But we don't want to have the knees cave in at all, okay? All right, go ahead and stand up.
Why do they want to do that?
So a lot of the time it can stem from the hip or it stems from the foot. So knee cave can be caused by your arch collapsing in and that's why your knee turns in. Or it can be caused by like a weak glute medius. So that is the muscle right here. It externally rotates the hip. When you drive the knees out, you're activating your glutes here. So if you're weak there, or if your arch collapses in with your foot, that knee is gonna follow it, okay? So that's the footwear that you normally wear.
Yes.
For those of you who don't know, Nike Metcons, they're a flat shoe. That is a great shoe for weight training. The shoe that she has on right now, it has padding, so it has foam padding. That's gonna create a lot of instability. So it's gonna cause the foot to rock around. So if her arch did collapse in, it's more likely that that's gonna happen with this shoe because her foot can move easily. She can't really grip the ground and use that for balance because of the padding there. So yeah, the other shoes are great, but that's probably why your knee caves in like that,
What
okay?
were the shoes? What did they
Nike Metcons. I'll write it down for you guys.
They're flat.
Yeah.
I can't. These rock back and forth, and they're like I was going to walk today.
Okay, so that's good for walking.
Yes, it's good for walking, but not for weights. You want to be flat.
Yeah. But your trainer, Tyler, told her that. They're pink too. That's why they're so cute, because they're pink Nike Metcons. Okay, all right. Let me actually have you stand up, and I'm going to turn the chair this way. So I want to show everybody what it looks like from the side, if you don't mind. So how she'll hinge back to then sit down. So she's loading her hips as well as her knees. Okay? So sit.
Is the chair underneath me?
Yeah, it's underneath you, don't worry. It's just a perfect example. There you go. And then squat back up. So a lot of people are afraid, you can go ahead and sit down, just rest for a second, of like hinging the hips, bending over, because they're afraid of loading their back. But it's actually a good way to load the glutes and the hamstrings. If she were to squat down, I'll show you because I can do it, and like try to stay upright. Sorry about that. If I try to stay straight upright, I'm loading my knees quite a lot here to try to go down. My heels lift up off the ground. Now, a lot of people can't do that without their knees hurting them. So you've got to, it's a balance. Bend the knee, load the hip, and that's how we squat. So we're not putting a lot of load on any one joint, okay? So box squats would be a great option for her to build strength. But also, because she's had knee replacements at different times, her legs might be a little bit imbalanced. So that's where we circle back. We talk about single leg movement. We would do that on maybe a leg press or a hack squat. Here, you can go ahead.
I don't do Pilates.
You don't do Pilates, okay.
No, because I feel like I can't do them differently. I have to,
Yeah.
I feel like I'm forced to do it the same, and I don't know if that's true or not.
Okay. It just depends on what you're doing in Pilates. If I'm going to be 100% honest, I've never really done Pilates, so I can't really speak on it. Del can.
So if it's the Pilates Reformer, and I'm not sure if you're talking about that Pilates or Pilates Reformer.
Yeah, Reformer.
But the Reformer actually forces you to work on each side of your body independent from the other. Okay?
Oh.
So it's actually better for you because it's going to force you to create that strength on each leg, because their straps are not connected, interconnected. It's forcing you to do the work. Okay, and it helps you to develop muscles front, back, side to side. So it's a better actually workout if you use the Pilates Reformer.
Okay. That's awesome.
Yeah, okay. All right. Actually, if you just want to go sit back in your seat, I think we're good now. Thank you so much, though. That was a good example. Okay. So for Margaret, our exercise selection would be mostly single arm, single leg movements. Of course, you want to cover all your bases though, so we would also add in some core like we talked about earlier. So that's how you would select an exercise and build a program. It's all based off of what you need and your goals, and not everyone's going to look like the same. The next thing we'll talk about, which you probably talked about with our nutritionist, I won't touch too much on it, but meal timing when it comes to training. I didn't really think about putting this in until yesterday when I was training a group of ladies, and they were training pretty hard, but they train pretty hard regularly. I teach a class called Women in Weights, and they were all getting kind of lightheaded. And I was like, well, when did you eat last? And they were all like, oh, I had a banana like 4 hours ago or something like that. They had not eaten anything within like maybe like 4 or 5 hours. And if they had, it was something very small. So meal timing surrounding your movement, your strength training, your cardio. You don't want to go 5 hours without eating before training. That's just a recipe for you feeling a little bit lightheaded, maybe getting some cramps. You're not going to feel very good. You're not going to feel very strong whenever you're doing that. So you want to be conscious of like, when is my workout? When am I having my last meal? And how long is that time span between those two? So this gives us kind of an idea. It's written out when you should be eating large meals, which is like 2 to 3 hours before, and smaller meals, which are consumed like 1 to 2 hours prior of that exercise. I also want to touch on, I have a lot of people, this might not be any of you, who want to lose weight. And people will demonize like carbohydrates, like don't have carbs, don't have carbs. So our carbs fuel our training. Now that means you need to have the right kind of carbs. The carbs that come from mostly whole foods, not a lot of refined foods, not not sugar. When I say carbohydrates, I'm thinking about sweet potato, I'm thinking about vegetables, I'm thinking about some fruits, I'm thinking about healthier carbs, whole foods, things you buy from the produce section, or maybe a little bit of rice or something like that. Not sugar, so no Pop-Tarts, people, or like Rice Krispie treats. Although they are very good. But that's something you might want to have before training. So maybe like 2 hours before training, have a meal with some sweet potato or something like that, just to give you a little bit more energy. Yes, ma'am.
So not so much in how your workout goes, but when you eat, does it impact like your muscle growth and stuff? Because I work out in the morning, so I always work out on Wednesday.
Yeah.
After a long time.
Yeah.
And still building strength and everything. So how is it, if I was to change things up, but what would it, does it impact your muscle growth a lot? I mean, I work out, usually eat breakfast, you know, an hour to later. So how does that impact?
So I would say that's actually a really good question, because what I'm referring to is obviously if you're waking up to work out at 5 a.m., you're not going to be eating breakfast 2 hours before. You're going to probably be waking up, putting your clothes on, and heading right out the door to the gym. I would say in that case, the night before, you want to make sure you eat a decent meal, because that's your fuel for the next morning, okay? That's what I would focus on more for you. And then post-workout meal is what you touched on for your breakfast. So post-workout, that kind of leads me to protein. So protein obviously helps with recovery. It's good to prioritize that post-workout because it's going to help you recover. It's going to help you build muscle. It's going to help you build strength. And then also, I would recommend a lot of people undereat on protein. So whenever you're eating a meal, you always want to make sure you have some sort of protein with it. You probably shouldn't be having, I mean, you can, totally can. I'm not saying you can't, but to optimally build strength and build muscle, you should be having some protein with every meal that you eat throughout the day, especially post-workout. That's probably the most important time to eat your protein, is right post-workout. And at post-workout, having some carbohydrates, if you've not eaten, trained, and then you eat an hour later, like I would have some carbs, because if you don't, you're gonna have a huge energy dip. You're going to get real tired after your workout, and that's not because you're actually tired. It's just because your body needs food. It needs fuel because you just did a full workout. Okay, did that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Hydration. So they touched on hydration on your sheet here, which everybody got, I think. It's very important. They list a couple different reasons. Kidney disease or congestive heart failure. But it's also very important for strength training. So our muscles need water. I train a lot of people who will get cramps sometimes when they're training. And they're like, why do I get cramps? I always get cramps. I'm like, did you drink enough water? Sometimes they'll be like, yeah, I drank a bunch of water. Then the follow-up question is that, and if you have a health condition, you are omit from this, but salt, electrolytes, like, do you limit that? Because there needs to be a balance between water and electrolytes in your body, because the electrolytes help you retain the water, which is going to keep you from getting cramps. It's going to help you stay hydrated throughout the day and throughout your workout. So you want to have a balance of those, okay? So if you want to drink water and then also consume some electrolytes. So I have some people who will consume like an electrolyte drink before training, or maybe drink it during training. One example would be like liquid IV. I don't know if any of you have heard of that before, but it's like a powdered drink you mix with water. But that kind of helps you stay hydrated, which is going to make you stronger. You'll notice a big difference between when you're hydrated and when you're not hydrated while training. You're going to feel better and you're going to feel stronger. Okay, any questions about the strength training portion of the talk? No questions? Okay, then we'll move on to cardio. So who in here loves cardio? Loves cardio? Loves cardio? Okay, what kind of cardio do you do?
Gauntlet, or the step mill.
Step mill?
And
Okay.
I run.
Okay.
Yeah, it's 2.
That's good. Who in here doesn't like cardio? No? No. Sarah down. It's okay to not like cardio. It's okay. So that leads me to for my first topic. What do you enjoy and what is the goal? So what is your goal for your cardio?
Mostly mentally.
Mostly mentally?
I know it's very beneficial to the body and to keep fit. My heart rate's very low, but mentally it really helps with depression, anxiety, helps you to be calmer.
Okay.
Especially if you have a lot of energy, you've got to direct that in a positive
to something.
manner.
I'm with you on that one. That's what I feel about exercise in general. So that's great.
Yeah.
So goal is just mentally. So that's a great goal. A lot of you might find that strength training and cardio would help with that. What do you enjoy is the next one. So I'm going to use maybe someone different for an example. I'll just come up with somebody. So let's say you don't like cardio. You get bored on the treadmill, you get bored on like the Stairmaster or something like that. Another form of cardio would be maybe walking outside, biking outside, doing something outside when you can. I know we can't right now. It's about to be like negative degrees out over the weekend. But finding a form of cardio that you enjoy. I would really, like pickleball is a really popular sport. You do pickleball? That's a great form of cardio. That gets you moving. So I would look into that if you're interested in that. So finding what works for you. It doesn't have to be on the treadmill. It could
water aerobics is really good too.
water aerobics.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Water.
Oh yeah, it takes the load off of everything. Yes, swimming is a great option for everybody. So kind of think about what is your goal when it comes to the gym, what limitations do you have, and what cardio do you think you're going to enjoy? And then incorporate that into your plan, okay? Starting point. So what is your starting point? We also talked about this with strength training. You need to think about it when it comes to cardio, because if you've been doing basically no cardio and you're just getting started, you're not going to start out with, what was your name?
Martha,
what Martha's doing. Martha's doing how many minutes,
running,
hours?
And, I probably.
Yeah, quite a bit.
Yeah, if I could do 24 hours, I would.
That's amazing.
Step mill, 30 minutes.
Okay, all right.
Without holding on.
Yeah, I need to get on your level because I cannot do that. Okay, so obviously a lot of you, if you're just starting out, you are definitely not going to be able to do that, but that doesn't mean you can't work towards that. So a good thing to do is find out what you can do. If you're like, man, I think all I can do is just maybe walk around the track 2 times. I have worked with people where that is all they can do, and that's where they start out, and that's totally fine. But you want to think about like, this is what I can do. This is what I want to do. How do I get from this point to that point, okay? And take small steps. Focus on the little goals. So like the person that can only go around the track twice without stopping, maybe they're like, next week I'm going to try to go around the track 2 times and another half without stopping. And you just build. That doesn't mean every single week you're going to be able to do more and more and more and more, because that's not how life works. Sometimes we're stressed, our body's under a little bit of stress, and you can't progress. But as long as you're slowly working towards that ultimate goal of maybe walking a mile, then you keep going. And then you'll have a new goal. That's one thing about it, it's never ending. You'll be like, oh, I have this goal, and then you reach that goal after maybe like 4 or 5 months, and then you have another goal, and you just keep progressing from there. That's the fun part about doing cardio or doing strength training or anything like that. Okay, the next bullet is heart rate. So where should your heart rate be while you're doing cardio? It kind of depends on what kind of cardio you're doing. So the next bullet point is LISS, or low intensity steady state cardio. That's what a lot of people do. So that's going to be where your heart rate, it's elevated, but not too high. You're maybe able to hold a conversation with somebody while you're doing it, but you're constantly moving. Like you're sweating, you're working up a sweat. That's what most people do. It usually lasts for a little bit over 20 minutes, but that's a form of cardio that a lot of people do in the gym whenever they're on the elliptical, the treadmill, the Stairmaster. anything like that. Even if you're playing pickleball, that would probably be concerned, like list cardio. High intensity interval training, that's another form of cardio. You'll see a lot of group fitness classes market this. It's like a big buzzword, HIIT training. Basically it's a form of cardiovascular exercise where you're doing intervals. So you're basically doing something that you cannot sustain for a long duration. So you cannot do it for 30 minutes or more than 30 minutes. So you would basically push yourself for maybe, let's give an example, like 20, 30 seconds, and then you rest. 20, 30 seconds, and then you push again. This is a great way to also get better at cardio, to improve your health. And that looks different, again, for everybody. Not a lot of people can take maybe the group fitness, the HIIT classes, because they're doing a lot of exercises, moving very quickly. Maybe you're a little bit intimidated. You could do HIIT training in a different way. So if you're able to, the rower is a great option. If any of you have ever heard of the rower before, it's really good for interval training. Track your meters, do maybe 100 meters as fast as you can, rest 30 seconds, go again. And as fast as you can looks different for everybody. Your 100% is different than another one person's 100%. So you've got to figure out how to make it work for you. But that's another style of cardio that you can incorporate into your training. Okay, any questions about cardio? No questions? Okay. So obviously there are a lot of different forms of movement that you can do outside of strength training and cardio. These are just two that I wanted to touch on today. You could do, we offer yoga, we offer Pilates, we offer a lot of group fitness classes that you can take and learn a bit more about how to move your body. Because as long as you're moving, that's what we want. We just want you in the gym doing something, whether it's like water aerobics or doing Pilates or doing yoga or strength training or anything like that. Okay. You might be a culprit maybe for eventually overtraining. I myself have overtrained before. You usually will end up with an injury if that happens most of the time. So that is something you want to avoid. And how you know if you're overtraining, it's if a lot of the time there are a couple different factors. If you are, say, tired throughout the day, or like the next day, you feel overly fatigued and you've trained multiple days in a row. That's a good indication, like outside of your workout. Like let's say you worked out at 3 p.m. and then of course you ate everything after. The next day you wake up and you're just like, man, I'm tired. I got 8 hours of sleep, if you can get 8 hours of sleep, and I'm still really exhausted. I wonder why. Maybe you overdid it a little bit in your workout the previous day. Another good indication that you're overtraining is little aches and pains. So like if you end up like, you're like, man, my wrist is really bothering me. Like maybe think about like, well, how many times have I trained upper body this week? Or like if your elbow, some people get like tennis elbow or something like that. That is another sign of overtraining. And that's a sign you want to pull back. Because those nags are little nagging pains, they're trying to tell you something. They're like, oh, you're doing too much. If you do even more, that's where you end up with maybe an injury or something, okay? So you might want to pull back a little bit or pull back on that certain muscle group. Like sometimes people will have like, maybe their knee nags them. That tells you like, maybe I don't need to do quite as much lower body. Maybe if I go to the gym, I'm going to focus more on my core, I'm going to focus more on my upper body, and I'm going to work around that, okay?